What is it? You do it at home every night when you go home to make your clothes. The stitching. Don't you make clothes on your sewing machine at night?
No.
No, you don't. Okay. Stitching. See the stitching here? You want to check where the harness is stitched. And it's stitched around near the buckles and wherever, 2 pieces of webbing. So you want to check all your stitching to see if it's not coming undone. Okay?
Wow.
Okay, Megan.
Okay.
We're still on inspections, and we're on the internal inspection that we make. We covered how to inspect equipment, and there's 3 things you have to integrate to make sure that you do a good inspection. What are those 3 things? Say again?
Is it the environment?
Those are the types of inspections.
Okay.
When you're inspecting a piece of equipment.
Your touch.
Touch,
Your eyes.
your eyes,
And your
brain. You're getting information from your touch, from your eyes, and then you're taking that information and you're thinking about it. And you don't do it while you're talking. If you have to talk, then you stop. Otherwise, you ignore it. Now, one of the things we have to do is when you're checking the hardware, and the stuff on this table is some of the typical hardware you would get on a ropes course. But when you're checking the hardware, before you check the hardware, we check our own FIT equipment. Now, you haven't used this yet. This is called a lobster claw, but one of the days you'll learn how to do this. But basically with a lobster claw, you check your carabiners the same way. These happen to be auto-lock carabiners, but it's the same thing. You have to make sure the gate opens and closes, and it's a 2-step. You got to turn it and open it. There's some that are 3 steps. This is a 2-step. 1, 2, it's open, and there's no screw down. But you feel for burrs, sharp edges. Now, when you check the actual lobster claw itself, there you want to feel the rope, look at it, and right now I'm not doing a good inspection because
You're talking.
I'm talking. Well, you check your lobster claw all the way, and you come up to the end and check it. And now this is called the Zorber. This helps you if you take a fall. It helps break that fall. We'll talk about it later, but the important thing is, as a facilitator in training, you look, you touch, you feel, and you think about it. Put your glasses on. Oh, that's right. You're not an old man, and you can see. But I also, when I check my Zorber, I check the date. Can you see that date right there? What's it say?
Yeah, it says.
Do you need my glasses?
0507.
0507. That means it's less than 5 years old. So this is still good. Now this has a place where you could inspect it and initial it. Sort of like we do here at school on the fire extinguishers. We don't do that. We just make sure that this thing isn't older than 5 years, or it doesn't have too much wear and tear. Now this has never opened before. The label is beginning to come off a little bit, but other than that, we're in good shape. So that's what you got to do. You got to inspect your own equipment that you're going to use to inspect the hardware. Now the hardware is what you use to put the belay cables up on a ropes course. Some of the hardwares to do belay cables are bolts. Remember we talked about bolts? When you check a bolt, you're looking for cracks. You're feeling it to see if there's any sharp edges. Okay? Here's a bolt. This is a lock washer. So as you tighten the bolt, it stays tight because this exerts pressure on the nut. And here's a washer. This is a nut eye bolt, same thing. It's got a different type of a washer. It doesn't compress. It just holds the nut in place once there's pressure on it, whereas this holds the nut in place because it's expanded. So if you were to check that, would you think that's good or bad?
Bad,
Why?
because it's not.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, whatever that means, it's not squeezed in. So it hasn't been compressed. Even though I can't move that nut, it hasn't compressed that washer. Now, which is better? This one, and let's pretend this is compressed. What's different between these two?
There's not thing on the end
What's the thing mean?
to keep it on the. I don't know.
This has 5 threads sticking out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 threads on the bolt. How many threads do you see here?
None.
Well, there's actually 1. Okay?
One.
So it's just like a tail on the rope at the end of a knot. You have to have at least 3 to 5 inches. Okay? Well, here you have to have some threads outside of the nut. So this wouldn't be tight enough, and this is just about right. If you have too much, say you had this much of the bolt sticking out, what's wrong with that?
It's too much.
And too much means what?
I don't know.
Why is it too much?
You could get loose on this.
What I'm saying is, what happens if all of a sudden this is all the way down here and you have this much sticking out?
It could hurt.
It's a safety. You could hit yourself, you could fall against it. So the stub that's left is about 5 threads. Okay? And this can be very sharp here also. So when you're checking this particular bolt, you check to make sure that's not sharp. If it is, you file it down.
What's this?
Well, this bolt is ended that way, so it's not sharp. That's a good question, Megan. This bolt was in fact sawed off because when it was on the old ropes course, it had too long of a tail, so we sawed it off. So it was just 5 threads, and it was sharp, and we filed it down. But feel that right there. That's what you want to do. That's a rough edge. That could cut somebody, okay? Now, the good news is, let me look at this. What's this called?
I don't know.
Yeah, you've never seen that. That's a staple. Okay, that's something that you use for a step to climb up. When you check that, you might check it to see if it's loose in the pole. We don't have any staples. On this ropes course in the tree, we have no staples. We have no bolts. We have no this type of bolt or this type of bolt. We don't have this bolt. But we do have cables, okay, belay cables, but we do not have rope clamps or wire clamps. Now, this is a wire clamp, and this is called a swage. They do the same thing. They hold the wire together, okay? We're going to talk about these rope or wire clips. We don't use those here on this course, but if we did, we would have to tighten them up with this wrench, and when we check this, we would check to make sure these are tight, just like we would check the bolts to make sure that they're tight. Now, which one is right? Which rope clamp is right? Do you know? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
I've never taught you this. Well, we're just going to introduce the concept because on another ropes course that we're going to start using, and I'll have to train you on that, these clamps have got to be where the saddle of the clamp is on the main wire and it's not on the dead or short wire. We say, do not saddle a dead horse. It would be good to saddle a dead horse? Why?
Because it's dead.
Because it's dead. Which is the dead horse? This part, the metaphor. You know, metaphor,
Yeah.
comparison?
Yeah.
So is this the dead horse or is this the dead horse?
This is the dead horse.
This is the dead horse. So never saddle a dead horse. Which is the saddle? This big part or this rounded area that goes into the big part? Which is the saddle? Think of terms as this thing is the saddle and this is Megan sitting in the saddle.
Okay.
Okay?
The bottom is the saddle.
The bottom is the saddle and here's the rider. Yippee-ki-yo. Which,
So this one's right.
yes, because this is saddled a live horse and this is wrong because you saddled a dead horse.
Yeah.
I want to introduce that concept so in about 2 weeks when you'll be tested on it, when we introduce this other piece of equipment at the other ropes course over at Girls Inc., which is right now not our ropes course, I want you to know that because they have rope clips over there and when we inspect, we have to make sure that the rope clips are not saddled on a dead horse and that they're tight. But we don't have those on this course, but we do have crimps, swages and crimps. So, a belay cable is a cable that holds a belayer. A element cable is a cable that holds just the climbing element. But we do have to know what a swage is and how many swages we need for an element cable and how many swages we need for a belay cable and how many crimps on each swage do we need. So, This cable right here, do you think that's an element cable or a belay cable?
It's an element cable.
Why?
Because it has one swage.
At the end, right?
At
There's
the
no
end.
backup.
No backup.
Okay, so these two would be hooked together by a rapid link that's appropriately screwed down and not
Screwed up.
right. Okay, now,
Okay.
what would this be for?
Be a fillet.
This would be a belay cable. Now, we've got some problems with this one. How about this swage right now? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it has 4 crimps.
Point them out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
How do you know that's a crimp?
Because it's smooth right there.
Okay, and it's flat.
Flat.
How many crimps does this one have?
3.
So if it had 2 swages, could this be an authorized belay cable?
No.
Why?
Because it needs to have 4 on a
4 what?
swage. Or crimps.
4
on a
crimps.
swage.
So even if this had a second swage, this is not an authorized belay cable because it's missing a 4th crimp. This has 4 crimps, but this one only has 1.5. And the reason they didn't complete this is because they didn't have enough of the tail of the wire sticking out. So it probably could have gotten 3 crimps on the wire, but the 4th crimp wouldn't have had the crimp on it, okay? Wouldn't have had the wire. So this is not authorized. So when you go up and check an element, you got to check to make sure you know the difference between a belay cable and an element cable. You got to know what the crimps look like, how many swages you should have. Got any other questions?
Nope.
So where do you go now?
Class.
Now tell me,
Math.
is math class better than this class?
Never.
Your answer ought to be yes.
Never.
Oh, see you, bye.